Welcome to the Hangry Games Arena, where Kelly Brewster, the author of What's Eating You and host of the Hangry Games, is shaking up the weight loss world. She's providing you with tons of resources and helpful tips to obtain your long-term wellness and weight loss goals once and for all. The Hangry Games is recorded and produced at Open Space Studios.
Welcome back, Hangry Game Nation. Oh my gosh, we have a huge treat for you guys today. And it's not cookies from Cookie Crumble or Hostess cupcakes, okay? No. This is so much better. Today, we have a very special guest. It's our first guest speaker. I am so excited. This is Kristina. We're going to talk. I'm going to introduce her formally in a second, but I wanted to just kind of give you a little shout out right now. But today we are going to be talking about family traditions and some of the curses and, of course, blessings that can affect our weight loss and our wellness journey. I hope and pray that you've had a good week, that you guys have worked on the takeaways from last week, did a little research on our prep for it steps, and evaluated your life to see where you can glean some better insight into these steps and into your weight loss progress. Realize that these steps can be used for more than controlling emotional eating. They can actually be a mechanism to assist you in establishing a strong foundation for sustainable and successful wellness and weight loss long term. So without hesitation, we got a lot to talk about. We're just going to hit the ground running. So let's go. When you mention the phrase family traditions, there are a few things that run through my mind. First, it's the song by Hank Williams Jr. I mean, come on. I mean, that's really, I know it was the first thing that ran through your mind too. I know it was. It absolutely leaves this indelible mark in our thoughts and our memories when we hear it, right? Which resonates with that family traditions, or what family traditions are really like for each of us. So you can talk about a certain tradition specific to your family, and immediately, without hesitation, you are transported back to that moment in time. You can vividly recall the sounds, the event, and yes, even the smells. Add food to that equation and you have got a little bite of heaven, right? I mean, you really do. So you don't believe me? Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. What about grandma's red gravy for that Sunday dinner? Or maybe her chicken and dumplings that melt in your mouth? Or what about that holiday that you have with your family and you finally get together for that special holiday to make your famous tamales, right? What about that first batch of boiled crawfish that Dad prepared on the very first warm day of April when the crawfish are perfect and in season? So that's not your thing. Okay, that's fine. Well, what about that homemade hummingbird cake recipe that has been passed down from generation to generation, and just reading the recipe transports you back in time? You know, it's no wonder when you think of family traditions in relation to foods, how we view food, its preparation, eating it, the social connection, connotation that's associated with it, that it can be either a blessing or even a curse. And sometimes it can be a combination of both, right? I mean, really, it can. You know, born and raised in the South, everything is just steeped in tradition here, especially the food, family recipes, events. Like, for instance, Mardi Gras. We talked about that a few weeks ago. It's associated with certain foods. What do you think about when you think about Mardi Gras? King cakes. I mean, hello, everybody, right? That's what everybody thinks about, right? And then, of course, now we're in Lent season. So what are they thinking about now? Crawfish and fish fries, right? So really, I could spend an entire time talking about that, but I'm not right now. That's for another day. Statistically speaking, though, because of our strong emotional and familial connection to food in the South and the abundance of just flat out amazing food, the obesity rate is significantly higher in the southern states than versus the rest of the country, okay? So many cultures, not just ours, but many cultures all over the world are defined by food. The rituals in preparing the foods, like the tamales that we talked about just a second ago, the recipes that are passed down from generation to generation, and the use of foods even at social gatherings. Hands down, our relationship to food, how we perceive food in our lives, and the food choices we make begins with our family. So that is what we're going to talk about today. You know, I mentioned this in the book. My mom was a good cook. Now, she wasn't a phenomenal cook. I mean, I'm not being ugly. I promise. I'm not being ugly. She wasn't a phenomenal cook, but she was good and she was consistent. But here's what I can remember. She was persistent in her endeavor to provide a balanced meal each and every night for the family. I could bet my allowance that when I got home and I sat down at the table, I guarantee you I was going to have a protein, I was going to have a carb, right? I was going to have a vegetable, and I'm going to have a salad on the side. I mean, shoot, I can still remember, and y'all are going to know what I'm talking about. I don't know this might be a little bit, I'm a little older than you, so, but, but I can remember there was a certain salad my mom would do. She'd get those pears out of the can. It was a half a pear. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know some of y'all can understand this, okay? She'd take that half a pear from the can. She'd put it on a little bed of lettuce, and then she put a little mayonnaise dollop on it. She put a square of cream cheese on the top. And if you were lucky, you actually got a maraschino cherry on top of that as well. Now, I didn't really particularly care for this, but for my mom, this was as balanced as you could get, right? And although my repertoire of the foods that I chose to cook for my kids and my family were a little bit different, I still followed my mom's footsteps. I mean, I still had the traditional protein and the carbohydrate and the vegetable because now they were healthier alternatives, but they were still, I followed the family tradition, you know? So family tendencies have a much larger effect on our weight than genetics actually ever could, which that is mind-blowing. I mean, when you think about that, it really is. Even the way we perceive ourselves, our exercise, our body type, and our weight itself can alter the success that we could experience in reference to even just like a healthy BMI. There's a book called Thinfluence. I know it's hard. Let me say that again. Thinfluence. It's a book that was written by a collaborative of authors. One of them is a cardiologist, and they refer to this spherical, like round graph that describes the layers of influence in our lives in relation to healthy food choices that can dictate our long-term wellness and success. The smallest inner circle, that, like, think of it like a core, right? I think of it like an avocado. It's like it's the actual seed, right? That's us. The smallest inner circle is essentially our makeup, our DNA, the things that are inert in us. It's our psychosocial factors that we've kind of been exposed to, that's where we have the most control. Mm-hmm. And I think that when we talk later on, that's what's going to come to light, I think, through this. When you can focus on that little core, that little nucleus, which is you, and you can start implementing some strategies, that's where you have the most control. Now, the next layer of that onion, per se, is the relationships. And this level includes your family, it's your friends, it's your coworkers, it's even like maybe organizations you're affiliated with. It's a more intimate relationship that influences a lot of your day-to-day choices and decisions. This would include meal choices. What are we going to choose for snacks? It's even affecting our reactive choices. So this layer, you don't have as much control in this layer, but there is much more influence from the outside factors in this layer. And then the next layer talks about environment, such as food environment, physical environment, etc. The basic takeaway here from this is the more control you have more control in the smaller part of that circle. But as you go further out, you lose some of that control. And the furthest you move out, there's less directive control and there's more other factors that are influencing you. And I just thought that was really kind of cool because, that's where you got to start. Mm-hmm. You can't start on health policies, let me see if I can change all of Louisiana just so that I can eat healthier. You see what I'm saying? So we realize that many food tendencies, healthy choices, and even destructive qualities in relationship to food can be directly related to family behavior. We often internalize without realizing. So a few behaviors and habits that can be filtered through generations, and these are kind of some fun ones we're going to talk a lot about here. Eating too fast, hurrying through a meal. Mm-hmm. And I know that, wait, we got to get here. We got to get to soccer. I got to get to work. So, we hurry through that. Girl, you don't have to say, no, I'm just picking. A need or a compulsion to finish your plate. Now, some of that could be just, like we said, that tradition or that generational thing that And Christina's going to speak to that in a little bit. But, that can be something we do to ourselves, or it can be something that's just passed down from a generation to generation based on some of the things that their external factors that they were exposed to. Eating when you're not hungry. I know that I have literally woke up out of a stupor and had a bag of potato chips done. And I'm like, what did I do? I wasn't even hungry. Why am I doing this? Using food to comfort children when they're having issues or they're feeling bad. This is such a big one. I'm so sorry Susie socked you in the eye on the school bus. Oh, you want a piece of pie? Or look at this good cookie. Let's get you something to eat, baby. You're going to feel better. Does that sound familiar? Cooking rich foods often. You don't need to eat crawfish etouffee on a Tuesday night. Cajun food, very rich. We've got roux in a lot of the things. We've got fried foods that we're eating. They're po' boys, all this kind of stuff. That does not need to be an everyday type of meal. That needs to be something that's every now and then. You know what I'm saying? Eating on the run. I call these my soccer moms. You guys are like, your wheels are your table, and what you pass by is what the meal that you're cooking for the day. So it could be Mickey D's one day, Wendy's the next day. It's like spin the wheel of fortune, and what are we going to wind up on today? And just eat and just on the run. Kelly, I don't have time. And we're literally in and out of the car. Skipping meals, even like breakfast. Well, I wasn't a breakfast eater, so I just don't really focus on breakfast for my kids or for my family. And nobody really sits down for that meal. Or that could even be skipping meals even at night. Like, I just don't feel like it. Now that my kids are out of the house, I'm in a definitely different situation than you. I mean, my husband and I we're into grandkids now, and it's nice. It's like, what you eating? Cereal. Sounds good. And then, of course, we have the reward system. Oh, if you do really good, Johnny, on that test, we're going to go get you some Jeremiah ice cream. Now, look, I like Jeremiah's. I'm not picking on him or anything, but you understand what I'm saying. Using it as a tool to reward a family member. And then encouraging it and overeating. So you know what? You're not getting dessert unless you finish your plate. I'm sorry. Well, what are they going to want to do? They want that cookie. They're going to eat that plate. They want the cookie, right? I mean, we would too. I'm sure I can go on and on here, but I want you guys to hear from our guest speaker and just a little insight that she brings to the table from personal experience, identifying those destructive behaviors, and of course, implementing healthier options, breaking the generational traditions. Kristina Calecas, I'm saying, look, I told her, I was like, I'm going to butcher your last name. I hope that's okay. She is a wife and a mother and has a full-time career. She's a patient of mine that I've had the privilege of working alongside of as she's successfully implementing healthy strategies in her weight loss and wellness journey. She has currently lost 60 pounds, truly created, I know, like, whoop, whoop. She's truly created a sustainable plan for her wellness journey. And during one of our last visits, we chat. I talk all the time. I never have a problem with chatting. And we just started talking about the triad of treatment. Remember, I'm going to ask every time, how's the eating plan? How's the exercise? How's the behavior changes? And during one of those visits, we were talking about that and what worked and what, of course, was flopping like a fish. And we got on the topic of holidays. And she shared some incredible insights into that visit. And she went to see her mom during the holidays, and through a little bit of nudging and encouragement, she agreed to come in today and to share a bit of her story with you. Welcome, Kristina. I am so incredibly glad to have you here, and we're glad to hear from you today. Tell her hello from the Hangry Game Nation. Come on now. So first things first, what I'm going to do is ask you, when did you get your aha moment? When did you realize, oh, heck no, I need to do something to improve my wellness and maybe weight loss as well?
So for me, a lot of it came from COVID. We were scheduled on a cruise and it was canceled like everybody else's vacation. So we decided to go rent a cabin into Tennessee. And for me, it was my mom, my husband, my son. And I was realizing that every single thing that we were planning out was food. And I was kind of one of the main ones. I'm like, okay, we just had breakfast. So where are we going for lunch? What are we planning for the next one? Rather than saying, hey, let's go do something fun. Let's go, have an experience. It was all about food being the experience.
That's so good. That's so good. I mean, and it's true. You really do have to have the aha moment. Mm-hmm. If you don't, it's like you're just going to keep going around that mulberry bush until you do. I mean, you will have to have it at some point. So when you did begin this journey, what were some of the things you changed at home to kind of nurture your success as well as in your family?
So the biggest thing for me was really and truly changing the mindset. It was being intentional with my time, intentional with the things that I was eating, really taking time to say, hey, I'm going to invest in myself. And if
Awesome. That's so good.
if I'm uncomfortable with the way I look or feel, then hey, I'm going to put myself out of my comfort zone. I'm going to do something different. Because I've tried and failed a million diets. So
Girlfriend, been there, done that, right? We all can relate to that for sure. And that's the proactive thing that we're talking about with the Prep for It steps, is being proactive and being intentional and mindful so that you don't have that reactive choice and you don't have that reactive behavior that can, is a slippery slope. It really is, So were you able to identify some specific daily traditions that help to achieve your goal? Like,
yes,
that you could put in place.
So for me now, honestly, with Prep for It, it really helped me to plan the day out. So to say, hey, this is what I have healthy. I could take this for lunch. I could take this for breakfast. This is where we're going to go with dinner. And just having that mindful moment to sit down and say, this is what I need to do. For me, there's a space between when I get home and when dinner's done. So I'm like, hey, let's go walk or let's go do something fun. So for me and my son, we started doing homework on the trampoline.
That's awesome.
So
that is amazing.
Do homework for a little bit and then have a bounce break and kind of jump around, play around.
I love it. Bounce break.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, really, in all sincerity, you have to be able to, this is where that peer comes in. You prep, you eat, you evaluate, you repeat. This is not something I've ever really talked about on here, but if you don't have that opportunity to evaluate, you don't know what's really working and what's not, right?
Exactly. I feel like we were just kind of on autopilot. Okay. And, it's really helped to just say, let's stop. This is a little bit different than our normal tradition, but we're going to try something different.
Love it. And that could wind up being something that you're now developing a tradition that can actually be brought down even further. Like your son can start implementing this. That would be amazing, right? So what about hindering? Was anything that was hindering you to establish some goals?
Yes. So I was definitely one of those kids that was raised, you eat everything off your plate. We have family meal time. This is when we have to all sit down and have that meal together. And my parents, I think they both came from areas where they did not have an abundance of food. So it was a lot of survival eating tactics. And so that I didn't realize until I got much older. And when I had my son and my mom had a conversation with me saying, hey, you're not going to make him eat with you guys. And I'm like, no, he's not hungry. Why should he eat? And that was a really big parent aha moment for me because I didn't want him to have the same struggle I did with weight. So a lot of it was hey, how do we teach him to say, I'm hungry? Am I hungry because I'm actually hungry? Am I grazing? Am I thirsty? So really and truly listening and understanding what his body needs because his schedule is different than mine.
Right,
right.
So I know one of the things that we talked about at that visit is that you went home for the holidays and there were a couple of things specifically that you had identified.
Yeah. So a lot of it, most of the food was carbs and that's just honestly how I was raised, pasta's your friend. And then it was just honestly hey, here's breakfast. This is what we're doing for dinner. I'm going to pull out this huge family meal for, lunch. And it was just a lot. And since I had spent so much time kind of taking a step back from that, it was a little shocking for me. And then just
it's the bird's eye view. It's really you're really getting a bird's eye view because you lived in it. So you really don't know. So you just living in it. And then when you get that bird's eye view and you're looking down at it, you're like, wow, this is really different.
And then everything we wanted to do as a family was, hey, which restaurant are we going to? Or which are we going to? And that's been a big adjustment. And my sister and I have now started saying, hey, where can we go hiking? Where can we go, explore?
So let me ask you a question. So when you do have these moments, you go back home and you have these moments, because obviously your mom, and we know, because I'm set in my ways. I'm a mom and I'm a grandmother now. So I'm set in my ways. And so do you go into and say, hey, why don't we do a hike? How does your mom respond to that?
She's actually super supportive.
That's
I think
awesome.
It took her a little bit, but I'm very fortunate in the fact that my sister's going through the same weight loss journey.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's like, hey, I want to be supportive. And we're trying to figure out what that looks like. So it's definitely a different dynamic.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Challenging in some ways too.
And then she also may get to experience you guys on another level that she hasn't had the opportunity to do previously. So that's so awesome. I think the one other thing that we were talking about is that you noticed something different in the pantry.
Yes. So my mom, they tend to food hoard almost like in a way to for lack of better phrasing. And there was just so much food that it was almost overwhelming. So like that was one of the conversations that we had where it's like, hey, so I've switched up how I shop, where I shop for the week.
Wow, that's
And
so good.
That's been a
so good.
huge thing because
And not having all of that readily accessible too. You can't eat a ding dong if it's not in your house. You see what I'm saying? If it isn't in the pantry, you can't eat it.
Yes.
Right?
And there was always like 6 types of bread. That was the big one. Like a ton of bread. So much bread.
Oh my God. Would you like, I've got whole wheat, I've got
everything.
white, I've got
French loaf, Italian loaf, there's herbs, there's everything.
Okay, I'm starting to feel like a Subway. Okay. Wow, that's incredible though, So then when you go home, your pantry is not set up the same way because you identified that.
And it's a daily struggle. I change, I feel like for me, it's being mindful when I'm in the grocery store, not shopping hungry. Because then
big one. That's a big deal.
Bad stuff is coming home.
Yes.
But I've noticed that I buy a lot less dry food and I buy a lot more either like frozen vegetables or stuff that's going straight in the fridge. So I kind of tend to stay away from the dry goods.
So it's like, it's basically your refrigerator has become your pantry in a sense.
100%.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And a lot of the European countries that, I mean, they have very low obesity rates. They have very little issue with any of this. They shop for the day almost. Like they literally go to the farmer's market, they go to the piazza and they go and grab a little cappuccino and then they go buy their meal for the day and then they prepare it. But they've already planned what they want to have and they've probably walked there. So they've already walked off some of their calories too, So one of the other questions I do have is what have you implemented at home to break the particular generational curse? And I know we talked a little bit about this, but like specifically, have you said, I've identified this as a family thing, so this is how I'm going to make the change here?
So for me, the biggest one is that I do not enforce my son to eat like during family meal times. My husband, my son and I, we have just very different schedules. So for me to say, hey, like I recognize you may not be hungry when I want to eat breakfast. You may not be hungry when we're trying to make dinner. So really having things readily available for him to eat when he's ready to eat.
Such as healthy options.
He's a big fan of yogurt. So yogurt's a really great snack in our house.
Good. That's amazing.
That's
awesome.
like his go-to is yogurt, or sometimes he'll do a peanut butter sandwich. But all of these things will kind of focus on like, hey, how do we get the healthier, maybe almond butter, or, sneaking
that guy in,
sneaking the healthier
That's when you have like a
things
chocolate,
in.
like, you could do a chocolate pudding with avocado. They'll never know the difference.
It's
they
like
never know.
parent magic.
They never know the difference, right? They're like, oh, this tastes different. Oh, it's just a different type of chocolate.
Yep.
That's right. So that is such an incredible testimony, though. I mean, it really is. And it's truly applicable insights into how family traditions, blessings, and cursings play a pivotal role in our overall wellness and weight loss. As we discussed some of the curses, the destructive influences that we referred to previously that can negatively impact your relationship with food, it's important to identify some tools and some suggestions that could have a positive impact on our interaction with food and overall health and wellness. So the author from The Thinfluence noted it's important to make those policies. And I talked about this just a second ago, but you start with the home policy. It's not like how I can change the world. It's how can you change your world, right? And the policies that we have control over are the ones in your home. And so it's that inner circle, that first layer that you have. So one of the things is removing sugary things, removing sodas from, you shouldn't have to have a soda in the house. That should be something, if they want soda, and look, I can remember back in the day, you didn't have soda in the house. It just wasn't there. And so if it's not there, you don't drink it, right? Sugary drinks, cookies, candies from the house. This makes it something that can occur occasionally. And it's almost like it becomes it's okay, well, this is something special and nice, but that we don't necessarily get to the point where it just becomes this daily routine for us. Sometimes minimizing the intake of fried foods, maybe favoring roasted, baked, or even grilled meals. I think sometimes even getting them involved. Have you ever gotten your son involved in some of the process of preparing?
He loves it. He'll actually help me saute things, obviously with supervision, but he'll get on the stool and kind of
supervision people.
Yes, supervision. He'll help get on the stool and he'll get really excited about just different things.
That's awesome.
And he's like, this smells delicious, and it's something healthy.
I did that with my grandson several months ago. I made homemade pizzas. And of course, I let him and Pops, we're Lolly and Pops, and him and Pops did the just the regular dough, and he got to throw the dough, and he got to put his toppings on, and he loved doing all that. And so he actually ate probably I would say he ate a little bit more than what he may have normally done at a sitting. Not that I was encouraging that, but it was like he had invested in that food. And so for him, so if you're investing in a healthy option, then he's going to probably be more inclined to do it. And cooking together is really so important. There is no better way really to establish new healthy traditions than to work together on a recipe, a favorite go-to, and then teaching your children not just what good food is, but also how to prepare it, If we can agree on this, you heard what I said, just avoid this mantra, finish your plate. Let's get that mantra. If we can agree to get rid of that, that will play a huge role in changing those negative, destructive influences in your family. Try various types of, I think, complex carbohydrates, some of the quinoas and the lentils and some of those things. And yes, it's an acquired taste, and we don't sometimes even have acquired that taste yet. But if they don't, so let me tell you, if we don't like it, they're never going to like it because we're not going to fix it. So they may be missing out on an opportunity eating something healthy that had we given them the opportunity to say up or down, then we're doing them a disservice. Yeah, we're doing them a disservice. Some having healthy fruits and vegetables readily accessible and prepared for easy consumption. If you have carrots, Kristina, if you got carrots in the refrigerator and he's got to peel his carrots, chances are it's not happening.
It's not happening.
It's not happening. So, they've got the baby carrots now. You just pull them out of the bag, right? You can go to Whole Foods now and they've got cucumbers already sliced. They've got celery sticks already peeled. They've got it easy and I know Walmart's starting to do that. So it's like, it is becoming an affordable way to provide those snacks. Don't you think?
Definitely. And we do apples a lot. We'll slice them, put lemon juice, and that's an easy grab and go.
Right. Because it holds for time. So that's good. So they don't look old and, look dingy. They actually look still very fresh and stuff. And let me tell you something. There's nothing. I've got this really great little tidbit. This is a free for you guys. This is a free one. There is a chocolate hummus by Cedar Hill. Dark chocolate hummus. You know what I'm going?
Yes.
It is delicious. And you could just take a few of those. Like I do thin slices of apples because I feel like that's kind of like a chip sort of. And I'll just do that. And let me tell you something. It is amazing. And it's a great healthy. It's chickpeas and they don't even know it. Right? Make meals fun and enjoyable. It is really cool when you can even do themed dinners all the way down to the dress and the tablescape and making it an event where it encourages everybody to have a desire to eat at home. Well, yeah, it's great to go eat at so-and-so, but we do some fun stuff at home. I'd rather go home and eat because I know it's going to be, and it doesn't have to be for every meal. It's like, okay, babe, okay, what's going to be the theme tonight? Maybe every month you have some type of theme, and maybe it's, it's an Asian theme and you're doing an Oriental meal, and, you have Oriental type of flowers and everybody gets chopsticks and you get to learn how to use them and just something fun like that. That is definitely going to have a much more positive impact on how they view food and then the choices that they make as well. The USDA has a area in there on their website called My Plate, and it's got some really great resources that can be fun for the whole family. So check that out if you have some time. Eat at home whenever possible and avoid reactive food choices and eating on the run. I know with your crazy schedule, you could definitely relate to this, right?
Definitely. And I think the biggest thing is honestly the first 30 days, 60 days is the worst. And you're going to be like, this is too hard. I don't have time for
Lock
this.
in because it's going to be a little journey, okay?
That's where you get the hills and valleys. And honestly, once you get past that 60-day period, now it's like, oh, I really don't want to spend $15 on junk. I might as well spend, like $10 on eating something at home that's healthier. That's going to give me a better feeling. Like it's going to make me feel more energetic.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to actually want to do something fun afterward rather than being like, okay, my stomach hurts.
It's like doing more of the do than the
Exactly.
eat. It's activities versus the function of food, right? Having a no judge zone at home. to reduce the occurrence of binge and closet eating. And I have to really talk about this because I see a lot of this. I work with women in a women's health clinic, and I see a good bit of binge eating. I do know that I have closet eaters. What happens is when, if you're like, well, why are you eating that? You shouldn't be eating that. You're overweight. What that does is that they're going to still want that food, but they're going to go through different ways to eat it. And it creates a negative way to deal with food. It creates a lot of obstacles for them in the future. So have a no judge zone. You don't have to judge them. Look, I've already said this. I'm the publisher made me take it out of my book. You know, when I'm looking at my husband eating a cupcake and he's losing weight, I do want to smack that cupcake out of his hand. I'm not gonna lie. I do. And you probably do too, you know? So it is important to have that no judge zone. The other thing we were talking about earlier is that before we actually started our podcast is the sabotager. There is those sabotagers in our life that are be like, oh, you're doing so great on your diet. Look, we got donuts for a snack. The drug rep drops them off. Would you like one? Well, they just told you how great you looked. You know, they just told you that, you know, and I don't think they mean to do that.
No, I don't think it's intentional. I think a lot of it is that just as people in general, we have created so many relationships based off of food, that creating boundaries honestly was one of my biggest challenges to say, hey, like, I just need you to respect what I'm trying to do. Like, I've made a lot of like headway and I've really put a lot of work in this. So now the people I work with are like, I know you're trying to be a good girl, but do you want to eat? And I'm like, hey, do we have someone with healthy choices? So you don't have to say no, just an alternate, just like offer up some different options.
Right. Do we have another option that we can go with, basically? I love that. That is so important. Another one is to avoid as much processed food as possible. Remember, we talked about this in the calorie episode. It is an empty calorie. Anything in a cardboard box, people, it's been processed for you. Just leave it on the shelf and save you something. Look, save those guys for when Armageddon happens, okay? Because they'll still be okay to eat. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the hoarders come in, because they'll have stuff in the pantry and it's like, did you know the expiration on this was from 2014? Oh, it's still good.
It's fine.
Okay, whatever. And avoiding using food as a reward for good behavior, using experiences, which is exactly what you just said, and activities to foster the better behavior. I think I couldn't have come up with something better than to have the jump break or the what did you call it? Bounce break. I love that. I love it because I mean that is what he's going to remember, and that's what it's fun. It's something that the two of you are experiencing and spending time together, quality time. But you're getting a little bit of a workout. He's doing something that is a physical activity and having fun doing it, which is going to encourage some good behavior there. Now, this was very interesting. This is one of the ones that they suggested is attempting to get 20 to 30 plant-based foods into your diet a week. Now, if you eat 3 meals a day and it's 7 days of the week, you have 21 meals. It's not Common Core math. It's just that's what it is, right? So basically what they're saying is you should eat 1 to 2 at each sitting. And I understand where they're coming from. I think that's a little hard to do. But I think if you can get at least 20 in that time frame, so at least every meal that you're eating have some plant-based product in there, I think that's going to be great because it's got good fiber. It's going to be a healthier option. You have to eat more of it to get less calories. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a 30. I'm like, that's a lot.
That's a bit much, but I think, you can substitute like marinated vegetables or pickled vegetables for chips. That's one of my favorite
go-tos.
I
love that idea.
And it gives you that crunch, that satisfying crunch and saltiness, but not the carb.
Right.
So that's a really good
not
one.
the empty calorie.
Exactly.
I love that. That's a great tip. Y'all better listen. Pick it up. Okay. Eating at the table with your family and make memories. See, the TV is never going to say, hey, you remember that time when you guys were all watching me and we did this? It's not going to happen. There's nothing about eating in front of the television that's going to create a family memory for you. Okay. So interact with your peeps, people. Really interact with them. A family that prays together stays together. A family that eats together stays healthy together, right? Are there anything that you would like to add to your experiences in this that you would like to maybe let the Hangry Game Nation know a little bit about?
I think the biggest thing is you've got to work on yourself first. So I couldn't, be an advocate for not passing on like bad food habits to my son until I figured out what I was doing.
Oh, that's so
because
good.
there were so many things that I was just like, this is just normal for me. So like
Right.
not the boredom eating, this was just normal for me. The not really focusing on veggies or this or that, like that was just normal, or even just like mindlessly snacking at work. So really being able to take a step back, and whether it's right or wrong, and saying, hey, like, I don't want to do this anymore. If, like, oh, my pants don't fit right, I'm uncomfortable anyway. So get out and do something different.
Oh, I love it. You're uncomfortable anyway.
Yeah, you're uncomfortable
If
anyway.
you're uncomfortable anyway, what difference does it make if you're already uncomfortable? Just do it.
Yep. And so like I started doing like dance classes and going to, gym
awesome.
classes, and everyone's like, oh, I don't want to work out in front of people. I'm going to tell you this. They're just trying to breathe too. So if you're in a Zumba or, body combat, everyone else is just trying to survive the class. Just go.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that was so good. And it's so insightful. It really is so insightful. We need to model good behavior, going into the archives of our family traditions, finding those memories and those tendencies that nurture good food choices and healthy lifestyles, and then maybe phasing out some of those that create the illusion of an awesome memory when in reality it's become more of a generational nightmare. You know what I'm saying? It is time for, you guessed it, I can't believe it's already over. I'm so sad. It's time for takeaways. This week, I want you to truly sit back, and over the course of the next week, or next week or two, I want you to analyze your eating habits, the tendencies, identify those family traditions, those that are true blessings, and yes, even those that have been more of a curse, and start implementing some small steps. Remember that previous podcast we talked about the small steps to facilitate those big changes over time. You have what it takes to break the generational curses and to establish healthier tendencies that can lead to generations of healthier families. As always, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Kristina, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you here. Make sure, guys, to head over to our prepforit.com website so you can get some resources. We are going to have some recipes coming out in the next week or so on the site. Subscribe to the podcast channel, please. Just subscribe, just so that you can get notification of when those next episodes are coming. You can get the alerts. Keep an eye out. We will have a launch party for What's Eating You in the next month or so, in the next probably 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. You're all invited, guys. Come on over. We're going to have a great coffee. Hopefully, I'm trying to get the cherry bomb here. Some good healthy snacks, of course. We're going to do some pictures, book signing, and so much more. Again, Kristina, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as my first guest for the Hangry Game Nation. Folks, pray you have an awesome, awesome week. And remember, may the odds always be in your favor. We're out. Have a great week.